In 1915, most of Japan had never seen an electric motor. The country was industrializing faster than any nation in Asia, but electricity was still a luxury. In the cities, a handful of factories ran on imported European generators. In the towns, kerosene lamps lit the streets. In the countryside, nothing had changed in centuries. Wires were being strung. Power stations were being built. But the infrastructure was fragile. Motors burned out. Transformers failed. Lighting equipment broke down within months of installation. The machines arrived from abroad, and when they stopped working, there was almost no one in Japan who could fix them. The gap between having electricity and keeping it running was enormous. The machines existed. The skills to maintain them did not. This was the world Mosaburo Makita was born into in 1893 in Aichi Prefecture, on the central coast of Honshu, Japan's largest island. His family were timber merchants. From childhood, Makita understood raw materials, physical labor, and the economics of making things with your hands. He was not an inventor, he was not a theorist. He was a young man with an aptitude for electrical engineering and a clear view of what was missing. In March 1915, at 21 years old, Mosaburo Makita established Makita Electric Works as a sole proprietorship in Nagoya, the industrial capital of Aichi Prefecture. He did not build power tools. He did not manufacture anything. He sold and repaired lighting equipment, electric motors and transformers. He had acquired machinery from a shuttered electrical firm in Tokyo. He had one co-worker, a 17-year-old named Jujiro Goto, who had come from the same Tokyo company. Together, the two of them opened a repair shop. The business model was simple. Japan's factories and buildings were filling with imported electrical equipment. That equipment broke constantly. Makita fixed it. The work was steady, skilled, and essential. Every repaired motor was a factory that kept running. Every replaced transformer was a building that kept its lights. Within a few years, the shop had a reputation. The motors Makita repaired lasted longer than the ones his competitors touched. The quality of the work became the identity of the business. For 43 years, that was the entire company, a repair shop. Through the 1920s and into the 1930s, the business grew, but it did not change. Makita Electric Works repaired motors. It sold transformers. It serviced the electrical infrastructure of a rapidly industrializing nation. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 devastated much of Tokyo and Yokohama, destroying factories, snapping power lines, and wrecking electrical equipment across the region. The demand for skilled repair work intensified. Makita's shop survived and kept working. In September 1935, Makita made its first international move. The company exported electric generators and motors to the Soviet Union. It was a small order, but it proved the repair shop could manufacture components reliable enough for a foreign buyer to trust. In December 1938, Makita Electric Works incorporated formally as Makita Electric Works, Inc. The initial capital was 180,000 yen. The workforce had grown to 94 employees. The company was no longer a proprietorship. It was a corporation, still focused entirely on motor sales and repair, still run by the man who had founded it at 21. Then the war came. By the early 1940s, Japan was at war across the Pacific. Industrial production shifted to military priorities. Factories that had built consumer goods now built weapons, vehicles, and ammunition. Electrical infrastructure became a strategic asset. Makita's factory in Nagoya sat in one of the most heavily industrialized regions of Japan. Nagoya was a primary target for American bombing raids. By 1944, the raids were devastating the city systematically. Factories were burning. Residential blocks were flattened. The industrial base that had powered Japan's war machine was being erased from the air. In April 1945, Makita moved the entire operation out of Nagoya to the smaller city of Anjo, roughly 30 kilometers south. It was an attempt to survive the bombing. The relocation was desperate, hurried, and necessary. The war ended 4 months later, on August 15, 1945. Japan's economy was in ruins. Its factories were destroyed or seized. Its supply chains were severed. Raw materials were scarce. The currency was collapsing. Across the country, people were repairing broken equipment with whatever scrap metal and salvaged parts they could find. Makita Electric Works went back to doing what it had always done: repairing motors, selling transformers, keeping the lights on. The shop was still in Anjo. Anjo would remain the company's headquarters permanently. It still is today. For 13 years after the war, Makita rebuilt. The company repaired motors for a nation reconstructing itself from nothing. Japan's economic recovery, later called the Japanese economic miracle, transformed the country from rubble into the world's second-largest economy within 2 decades. Factories multiplied. Construction exploded. Roads, bridges, railways, office towers, apartment complexes. Japan was building at a pace that rivaled anything in modern history. Every construction site needed power tools. Every factory needed motors. Every building needed electrical infrastructure. The demand for reliable equipment was enormous and growing. Makita Electric Works served that demand by doing what it had always done: repairing, selling, maintaining. The work was essential. It was profitable enough to survive. But it was not enough to grow beyond what the company had always been. The company was 43 years old. It had never manufactured a single product. It had never built a tool that carried its own name. The man who changed everything was not Mosaburo Makita. It was Jujiro Goto. Goto had joined the company in 1915 as a 17-year-old worker. He had spent 4 decades inside the business. By the late 1950s, he had risen to become president, and he made the single most important decision in the company's history. In January 1958, Makita Electric Works manufactured and sold a portable electric planer. It was the first such tool ever produced in Japan. Model 1000. A compact handheld machine that could plane wood surfaces with electric power instead of manual effort. The decision was not obvious. The company had never manufactured a power tool. It had spent 43 years repairing other people's machines. The planer required new engineering, new manufacturing processes, new supply chains, and new customers. It was a complete departure from the business that had sustained the company since 1915. But Goto understood something that the repair shop had taught him over 4 decades. Makita's engineers knew electric motors better than almost anyone in Japan. They had taken apart thousands of them. They had rebuilt thousands more. They understood windings, bearings, housings, heat dissipation, and torque characteristics at a level that came only from decades of hands-on repair work. The repair shop had not been a limitation. It had been a training ground. By November 1959, Makita had transitioned fully to manufacturing electric power tools. The company began exporting immediately, first to Australia. The electric planer was followed by drills, grinders, circular saws, and sanders, each one built on the motor expertise that 4 decades of repair work had embedded in the company's DNA. In March 1963, 4 years after entering the power tool business, Makita achieved something remarkable. The company became entirely debt-free. No loans, no bonds, no obligations to any bank or creditor. A company that had pivoted from repair work to manufacturing, expanded into export markets, and built a new product line from scratch, had done it all without accumulating a single yen of net debt. This was not an accident. It was a philosophy. Makita operated on the principle that a company should never spend money it had not yet earned. Growth was funded from profits, not from borrowing. Expansion was measured in cash flow, not in credit lines. The company grew at the speed its own revenue allowed and not 1 yen faster. This financial discipline would define Makita for the next 6 decades. While competitors leveraged debt to acquire brands, expand aggressively, and chase market share, Makita expanded methodically, funding every new factory, every new subsidiary, and every new product line from its own earnings. In 1962, the company went public on the Nagoya Stock Exchange. By 1968, it was listed on both the Tokyo and Osaka exchanges. By 1970, it had been promoted to the first section of all 3, a designation reserved for Japan's largest and most financially stable companies. In April 1969, Makita introduced the 6500D battery-powered drill. It was the company's first rechargeable power tool. Black & Decker had released the world's first cordless drill in 1961. But Makita's entry signaled that the Japanese company, intended to compete at the frontier of power tool technology, not merely follow it. In December 1978, Makita launched the 6010D, the first power tool in the world to use a nickel-cadmium battery. Previous cordless tools had used older battery chemistry that delivered less power and shorter runtimes. The nickel-cadmium cell was denser, more consistent, and more rechargeable. Makita had not invented the battery, but Makita was the first to put it inside a power tool and sell it. The pattern was becoming clear. Makita did not chase headlines. It did not claim to have invented categories. It studied the technology, waited until it could be implemented at professional-grade reliability, and then built the most durable version of it on the market. No press conferences, no marketing spectacles. Just a better tool, available quietly, that professionals discovered on job sites and never stopped buying. The 1970s and 1980s marked Makita's global expansion. In 1970, the company established Makita USA Inc. in New York City, its first overseas subsidiary. The American market was dominated by Black & Decker on the consumer side, and by a fragmented network of industrial brands on the professional side. Makita entered not with advertising campaigns, but with tools that professionals tested on job sites and adopted through word of mouth. Then France in 1971. Then the United Kingdom in 1973. Then Australia in 1975. Then Canada. Subsidiaries multiplied across Europe, Asia, and the Americas throughout the decade. By the mid-1970s, Makita had sales offices in more countries than most Americans had heard of. The expansion was funded entirely from retained earnings. No debt, no leveraged buyouts, no outside investors demanding quarterly growth targets. Every new subsidiary, every new factory, every new market entry was paid for with money the company had already earned by selling tools. In 1980, Makita opened its first overseas manufacturing plant in Canada. Brazil followed in 1981. In 1985, Makita began manufacturing power tools in the United States for the first time. A strategic response to trade tensions and anti-dumping tariffs between the US and Japan. An American anti-dumping suit had been filed against Makita. Instead of fighting the tariffs from Tokyo, Makita built a factory on American soil. The tools were made where they were sold. The trade dispute lost its leverage. At the end of the 1980s, Makita commissioned Giorgetto Giugiaro, the legendary Italian designer behind the DeLorean, the Volkswagen Golf, the Lotus Esprit, and the Maserati Ghibli, to design 3 power tools: a circular saw, a grinder, and a drill. The tools were exhibited at the World Design Exposition in Nagoya in 1989. A Japanese power tool company hiring the world's most famous automotive designer to shape its products. It was a statement. Makita did not see power tools as disposable industrial commodities. It saw them as engineered objects worthy of design attention. Objects that professionals held in their hands for 8 hours a day deserved the same design consideration as the cars they drove home in. In 1991, Makita made its most significant acquisition. It purchased Sachs-Dolmar GmbH, the German chainsaw manufacturer founded by Emil Lerp, the man who had built the world's first gasoline-powered chainsaw in 1927 on the slopes of Mount Dolmar in the Thuringian forest. The acquisition was strategic and deeply intentional. Makita had never built a gasoline-powered chainsaw. Dolmar had been building them for 64 years. Instead of starting from nothing, spending a decade developing engines and chains and bars from scratch, Makita bought the company that had invented the entire category. The Hamburg factory continued operating. The German engineering teams stayed in place. Dolmar's chainsaws were manufactured in Germany, by the same people to the same standards, under new ownership that had no interest in gutting the operation for short-term profit. This was the opposite of what American conglomerates did when they acquired tool brands. Stanley Black & Decker bought Porter Cable and stripped its engineering. TTI bought Milwaukee and moved production. When Makita bought Dolmar, it kept the factory, kept the engineers, and kept the German manufacturing standard. The Hamburg plant continued producing Dolmar chainsaws for decades. In 2015, Makita began transitioning the branding from Dolmar to Makita. painting the chainsaws teal instead of orange, but the machines still came from the same German facility, built by the same engineering teams. That same year, 1991, the company changed its name from Makita Electric Works to Makita Corporation. The old name had reflected its origins as an electrical repair shop. The new name reflected what it had become. In February 2005, Makita introduced the TD130D, the world's first professional-use power tool powered by a lithium-ion battery. Earlier lithium-ion tools existed in consumer form, but Makita's was the first designed, tested, and priced for full-time professional use on construction sites. Lithium-ion batteries were lighter, held more charge, and did not suffer from the memory effect that plagued nickel-cadmium cells. A tool that ran on lithium-ion could be recharged at any state of discharge without degrading the battery's total capacity. For a professional who charged a battery during every lunch break, this was not a convenience. It was a revolution. The lithium-ion platform that followed, called LXT, became arguably the most important battery system in the power tool industry. An 18-volt lithium-ion slide-style battery that could power drills, impact drivers, circular saws, grinders, reciprocating saws, sanders, routers, jigsaws, planers, vacuums, radio speakers, fans, and dozens of other tools. One battery, one charger, an entire ecosystem. Makita added a layer of intelligence it called Star Protection Computer Controls. A communication chip inside the battery and a matching chip inside the tool exchanged data in real time. The system monitored temperature, current draw, voltage, and charge state. If the tool overheated, the battery reduced output before damage occurred. If the battery was being drained too fast, the controller intervened. The system protected both the tool and the battery from the operator's urgency. By 2026, the LXT platform powers over 300 different tools. It is the largest single-battery cordless tool system in the world. A carpenter who buys one Makita 18-volt battery can use it across every category of tool the company manufactures. The battery purchased in 2005 still fits the tool released in 2026. For professionals who needed more power than two 18-volt batteries could provide, Makita developed the XGT system, a 40-volt platform capable of doubling to 80 volts. It was designed not to replace LXT but to sit alongside it. The chargers are cross-compatible. The systems coexist. Makita did not strand its existing customer base to chase a higher voltage number. It built a second platform that extended the range without abandoning the first. This was not an accident. It was a commitment. While competitors changed battery platforms every few years, stranding customers' existing tools, Makita maintained backward compatibility for over 2 decades. A professional who invested in the LXT system in 2005 has never been forced to replace a working battery because the company decided to change the connector. That decision cost Makita engineering flexibility. Newer battery architectures could have delivered marginal improvements in weight or charge speed. Makita chose compatibility over marginal performance. It chose the relationship with the professional who had already invested in the system. Today, Makita Corporation is headquartered in Anjo, Aichi Prefecture, Japan, the same city it relocated to in 1945 to escape American bombing raids. The company operates manufacturing plants in 14 countries, including Japan, the United States, Brazil, the United Kingdom, Germany, Romania, China, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Canada, Mexico, and the United Arab Emirates. Annual revenues exceed $5 billion. The workforce exceeds 17,000 people. Makita sells its products in more than 50 countries through a network of subsidiaries and distributors. The company is publicly listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It is not owned by a private equity firm. It is not a subsidiary of a conglomerate. It has never been acquired. It has never been merged. It has never been stripped for parts. In an industry where TTI, a Hong Kong-based conglomerate, owns Milwaukee, Ryobi, and Rigid, and where Stanley Black & Decker owns DeWalt, Craftsman, Porter Cable, and Black plus Decker, Makita stands as the last major independent power tool manufacturer with genuine global scale. It builds its own motors, it designs its own batteries, it manufactures its own tools in its own factories. It publishes parts availability for products years after they leave the production line. It offers brushless motor rewind service. It uses magnesium housings where competitors switch to plastic to save pennies per unit. Makita does not make headlines. It does not announce revolutionary breakthroughs at press conferences. It does not name its tools with aggressive military-sounding model designations. It does not sponsor combat sports or monster truck events. It does not run Super Bowl advertisements. It builds power tools. It has been building power tools, or the motors that power them, since 1915. It has been doing it without interruption, without acquisition, without private equity intervention, and without abandoning the professionals who depend on its products. While Black & Decker was sold to Stanley Works and became a holding company, while Craftsman was ripped from Sears and gutted by Stanley Black & Decker, while Porter Cable was killed twice, while Milwaukee was sold to a Hong Kong conglomerate, while Rigid became a Home Depot exclusive manufactured by a company that did not found it, Makita remained Makita. Same headquarters, same independence, same engineering culture, same commitment to the person holding the tool. The company that started as a 2-person repair shop in Nagoya, a 21-year-old founder and a 17-year-old worker fixing broken motors in a country that had barely discovered electricity, is now the largest independent power tool manufacturer on Earth. Mosaburo Makita founded the company. Jujiro Goto transformed it. But neither of them did the thing that actually built the reputation. The reputation was built by the tools themselves, one at a time, on job sites in 50 countries over the course of 111 years, by professionals who picked up a teal-colored tool, used it until it should have broken, and found that it had not. That is not marketing. That is not branding. That is not a corporate strategy devised in a boardroom. That is 111 years of an electric motor repair shop that never forgot what it means when a tool fails in the middle of a job, and 111 years of making sure it does not.